Media panel, what a great, fun bunch of guys. And first of all, our first guest is maybe the only other person that I know in the media world that understands the importance of the pig decal on the Agajanian car at Indy. And this is where I run into Bones all the time when I'm getting a picture of Kerry Agajanian putting the pig decal on for good luck, and I always run into you there. Bones, introduce yourself.
Hi, Bone Sports here from Speed Sport. Yeah, I'm big on history, so that's a big moment for me every single year to run into Kerry and to see that Agajanian family legacy and everything else we see on race day there. So good to be here. And
a newcomer to RTBC who has found a very unique way to attract quite the audience. Joshua, introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about Hunt the Front.
My name is Joshua Joyner. My family and I operate Hunt the Front, which is a YouTube channel that we started, I guess, going on 5 years ago to document, I guess, if you will, our family's racing, my brothers and I, and we've kind of turned it into, I guess, a lot more than that now. We've grown on YouTube to 135,000 subscribers, get over 1 million views per month, so which is pretty cool. And we've turned it into, besides growing our race team, we've turned it into our own series and streaming company on the Speed Sport platform, or Rivet platform through Speed Sport. We this time last year, I was sitting out there for the first time because we were starting our series and wanted to get up here and learn and try to put on a good year, dirt super late model racing, and I guess we did okay because I was invited to come up here and speak this year, so that's a good sign. So.
A very good sign indeed. And finally, I've talked a lot about people who have embraced RTBC from the early days, and they don't go back any farther than our next guest. Ralph, please introduce yourself. Not that anybody doesn't know who you are.
You never know. Ralph Shaheen, president of Speed Sport. So always so great to come here at RTBC and see so many friends, old and new. Jill and, oh gosh, Josh Holt over here, Tim McGrain and Michelle and Francis, Bob Sargent. It's just awesome to see everybody here today, and I hope everybody has a great week. And the 9-time champ as well. So it's great to see him here too.
All right, Joshua, you're my first victim of the day. When I tuned in to look at some of your stuff, I was just like, I'm not necessarily your demographic that you were looking at. I couldn't stop watching. It was fantastic. What a huge online sensation that you guys have become. So first of all, tell everyone about the concept, how you do it, but it's time to come clean, time to be honest. Are you a little surprised at how much of a, dare I say it, cult following that you have attracted?
Absolutely. I'm surprised every day that we, my brothers and I and our families get to do what we do. But it's, we started it, like I said, it's going on, it'll be 5 years in March. We started the Hunt the Front YouTube channel. Before that, we were just kind of weekly racers and the Panhandle of Florida area, trying to make it to the next race and have fun. And I didn't race, or I used to race a long time ago. It was really my brothers Jonathan and Joseph that do the racing, and we were always underfunded and didn't really have a lot of resources, and that we thought that just for some reason people might find that interesting. So we got a GoPro camera and turned it on and started filming what we do from the shop to the racetrack. People seemed to like it and started following us, and yeah, it's kind of grown. It's a pretty loyal following. We can put out a video of just about anything, and there's going to be about 50,000 people watch it. So that's pretty cool. And then when we do something really cool, like a really big race, or my brothers go and win some Corvettes in a race or something, we get close to 100,000 people to watch it. So it's pretty cool, and what it's grown into.
All right, Ralph. Early in the week, every week, I was excited when National Speed Sport News came in the mailbox because I was going to learn about stories that I wasn't hearing about anywhere else. And I remember this one story some little podunk track in western PA. I don't even remember the name of it, but it was a dirt track. There was a guy who had been racing there for 25 years, had never won an A main. I read about it. Couldn't
Bones
wait.
probably wrote the story.
Could not wait to interview this guy. And when he said, I'm no big deal, I said, yes, you are. Your perseverance and your staying with this really resonated with me, an old school fan. Are newer race fans that much different?
No, I don't think so. I think what you're talking about is what Speed Sport has always prided itself in, and that's storytelling. And that storytelling all began with Chris Economaki, and then it has progressed from there with guys like Bones and Mike Kirchner and all the guys that we have on our staff who have been out there for years telling those stories. Now we're just telling them a little bit different ways. We still have the written word through our website. We don't print anything anymore on a regular basis. You never know, we might get into some books or some other things down the road. We'd all love to do some of that. But now we're getting more into the visual side of it and all about streaming and fast channels. Fast channels where it's all going.
All right, Bones, time to pick on you. You are the best writer covering auto racing that you got the PayPal. So that was great. No, all honesty, you tell a story better than anyone else I've ever read. And I don't care what the story's about, whether it's Bill Simpson or whether it's a racer. But here's my question to you. Us old school fans, man, we get excited anytime we read or see anything about guys like the people's champ, Dave Darland. 30 years from now, will today's newer fans give a damn about the racers that are racing now? Or are they just not standing out the same way our heroes did?
I hope they do. I mean, it's a different world today. One of the great things about trade papers in the old days and magazines when they were on every pharmacy newsstand was that you'd find things by accident. I started going to one little track in Connecticut where I was born, and by the second or third week I was buying newspapers, the racing papers every week, and you would turn the page and see cars that looked different from the ones that raced at your track, and it made you want to go there. And I think it made the people at other tracks want to come to your place. And so the one thing that we lose by not having the newspapers is that almost organic curiosity. I mean, you turn a page and you're in a whole new world that you want to go and investigate. I worry about that, but I think, maybe things will evolve. We didn't see today's world coming 15 years ago, so it's hard to say what's coming 15 years from now. But I think, racers and race fans are a pretty curious lot, and hopefully they'll look around and find those places.
John Facenda. Name ring a bell? Does it ring a bell with anybody else in the room? John Facenda? NFL Films? Yes, Autumn Wind. There you go. So I bring up John Facenda's name, the legendary voice of NFL Films, because of this. You ask, does anybody remember? Well, there was a passion to learn about Joe Montana, right? And a guy like John Facenda made him legendary through all the stuff that they would do with NFL Films. Well, now you got Brock Purdy. Yes, I'm wearing my Niner hat here. So now you got Brock Purdy. Are people going to care about Brock Purdy down the road? My guess is probably yeah, because there's still going to be NFL Films out there telling those stories. You could have read about Montana in Sports Illustrated, but it was probably John Facenda and NFL Films that really hooked you, just like they would the Monsters of the Midway or what Lombardi was doing with the Packers. Any of that stuff, the way NFL Films captured that, got you riveted into it, and you couldn't walk away from it, right? So we can still tell those stories, and there's places for people like Bones to write those things down there. And if he wants to voice it or somebody else voices it, that's fine. You still need the great writing to tell the story. And it doesn't always have to be an epic voice like John Facenda's. It can be fingers on a chalkboard like mine that can still get the story out there. But it's the combination of all that through the video that's going to capture these kids and the current fans going forward.
All right, Bones, I'm going to follow up with you because media nowadays versus media back in the day. We used to build heroes. We would overlook maybe a few little things about that driver that might not have been as big of a selling point to the fans. We built heroes up back in the day. We made stars out of our racing stars. Nowadays, I don't care whether it's the NFL, Major League Baseball, auto racing, I see the media doing more to tear people down. If there's just a rumor about something bad, it's all over the place, even if it turns out not to be true. Is that hurting the racing world?
I think social media does that quite a bit, and I worry about that. And I do think that some of the guys we had as heroes, or people, I hate to say just guys, but the heroes that we had 40 years ago might not have stood up to this kind of social media scrutiny that you see today. It worries me a little bit because you need a little elbow room, I think, to be able to grow into a hero. But I think the stories that make you want to either broadcast a profile about a guy or write a profile about a guy or do any kind of an online streaming feature about the guy, I think that's still there. You just might have to tell it in a more concise way. But I think that's a real fear that you have. I mean, you hope that we don't. They always said you put people on a pedestal just to tear them down. I hope it doesn't happen faster than it used to, but I think it does to some degree.
Dennis, I want to jump in here because it's an interesting dynamic here. Because I love what you just said about you need elbow room to grow into becoming a hero. And then yet we have Joshua on there where we talk about YouTube, and that's the essence of what YouTube is. You can't tell me your first videos are the quality that your videos are now, right? You probably grew, it got better over time, and it gave you that elbow room. But it's interesting in listening to this conversation because Dennis, then you were like, what about the heroes? Are we going to have that? I just think we're finding that on YouTube, and what's so relatable with your content is that so many people relate to it, not having funding. Esports, we just had that conversation and tying this all together. I want to know what goes on at tracks when the lights are out, so to speak.
I think you talk about telling stories, and I talk about the old days and written stories, but that's essentially what we do on YouTube is we're telling a story. It's a bit long-winded because we make 3 or 4 videos a week, and for some reason people stick around to watch them for 5 years now. But it's essentially all we're doing is telling a story. I don't know if it's turning us into heroes or anything, but it's we wouldn't have the elbow room or whatever you want to call it, the platform to do that before YouTube. So it's been pretty cool to have that.
And I think media then, the evolution, we got to see the polished version a lot of times, right? A lot of the practice, whereas YouTube, and a lot of those, it's not very forgiving.
The thing I worry about with YouTube is the comments.
I agree.
You know what I mean? That instant. I grew up working, writing for trade papers and working at trade papers, and we wouldn't print a letter to the editor unless the person had his real name, and we could reach out to them if we needed to. Whereas, I feel bad for anybody on social media today, that instant reaction. It's so easy to criticize and tear things down, and you could have the greatest YouTube clip in the world about a driver somebody doesn't like, and because they don't like them, the video sucks. You know what I mean? It's a great video, but it sucks because it's somebody they don't like. That instant feedback, I think, is sometimes a dangerous thing.
I agree. That's
Or
why
maybe I'm just old, I don't know.
No, I agree. That's why I shut it off for my kiddo.
100%,
Honestly, shut
right
off.
on the money. Ralph?
No, Bones they're both right. Everybody's right in talking about this. Unfortunately, there's people that are going after clickbait and people that are just wanting to be keyboard warriors because it's their way to just get a little recognition for themselves, as opposed to, you don't have to like everybody in the game of racing. It's okay to have white hats and black hats, good guys and bad guys, and that's fine.
All right, Joshua, I'm going to aim this one at you. So, you guys were racers. You didn't have a lot of experience doing this stuff, did you?
Well, so to clarify, my brother, I have a twin, so you know we're a lot alike and look a lot alike. But he's the one who does most of the videos that you would, if you go to our channel, you're gonna see. Every now and then I'll fill in for him, or I'll be in the videos too. But he's the one that is literally carrying the camera around and making the videos, edits them himself and everything. And I help him out some with that, and I do more of the business side of it. I've been along with being in racing through, you know, when I used to race years ago, and then my brother's continuing to race, I kind of took a career path in the media side. I worked Michael Rigsby with Flow Racing was when he had Dirt on Dirt. I worked for him for a few years. Worked for the World of Outlaws Super Late Model Series. Actually, I was a writer originally, and then got into video and everything, and we started the YouTube channel, and I did work for Flow Racing for a while, so I do have some experience. It's not like we just did it out of nowhere.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that was
not
going.
A whole lot.
Yeah, because I like the fact that it's, I don't know how to put this, a little rough around the edges on the stories you cover. I mean, it's not,
it's authentic.
It's there you go. It's getting back to that word authentic. So how is the online audience help you from a sponsorship standpoint for the series and race team?
Well, it only the series and I'll say the race team only exists because of it, but definitely the series and the streaming platform only exists because of our YouTube audience. We were able to, once it kind of started growing to a significant level, it's actually during COVID, we did a pay-per-view race because you couldn't have people there in attendance. So we with our local track, Southern Raceway, did a pay-per-view race, and it went really well. And we realized, hey, there's something to this, and started coming up here to PRI and Chris Grainer with Rivet and Speed Sport started reaching out and telling us you should try this streaming thing, and the next thing you know, we put together a plan to launch a series and started a streaming company our streaming platform to support it, and it's grown. Year one went pretty well, and now we've doubling our points fund, doubling our payouts just about. So hopefully that's not a dumb idea, but it continues to support it. The streaming numbers continue to support it, but I'd say it's definitely turned it into something we never thought it would be. On the race team side, like I said before, the YouTube, we were just going out to local tracks in our area. We did race. My brothers raced dirt late models, but I always had the dream of racing, the World of Outlaws and Lucas Oil and going to Eldora Speedway and making the World 100. But it was not an attainable dream at that time. It was more of a pipe dream. And a couple years after starting the YouTube channel, we were there, and my brother Joseph made the World 100 starting field. So it's enabled us to live the dream of not only making a living in the motorsports industry, but also to doing things like the racing side of it that we've always just dreamed about. So yeah, it's been pretty life-changing for us.
All right, Ralph, going to ask you the most unfair question of the day. All right. We talk about the racers being our heroes. Well, I've got two of my media heroes up on the stage today because I love everything that you've done. I've told you call shopping cart race, and I'll be tuning in. And same way with Bones. I mean, he could write something about whatever, and I'll give it a look because I know that he's not going to waste my time with something that is less than a fabulous story. So I've watched your career forever, all kinds of motorsports. I used to jokingly say there were NASCAR fans and then there were racing fans. There were two different genes, and you've got the racing gene. You love all styles of racing. So here's the very unfair question. Of all the events that you've covered in person, yourself as part of a broadcast team, what's your Mount Rushmore? What are the 4 favorite events that pop into your mind first?
Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indianapolis 500. That's got to be number one.
You got to say that when you're in Indiana.
Well, I would say it if I was in Daytona. No offense to my friends down in Florida, but it's Indy.
Yeah.
Everything else comes after that. Knoxville Nationals is number 2. Anything at Laguna Seca. And I'm not just saying that because Jill and Tim are here, but they both know that place is very near and dear to my heart. So Laguna Seca, anything there. WeatherTech Raceway. And then after that, it's going to be Tikal. We're talking about Tikal, right? It's going to be a Supercross. And I'm going to say A1, Anaheim won the first race of the year, just because it's got all the extra hype around it, all the manufacturers, because they're all based out of SoCal and everybody's there. It's got all the hype leading into it, kind of like Daytona. So for that sport, that genre of racing, it is super intense that given night. Not that it's necessarily the best venue or the best dirt. Track layouts are always different, so you can't say, you know, which one was better than the other, but there's something about the vibe in that building that weekend. It's pretty special.
All right, Bones, you thought you were going to get off easy on this one. No, a little different. So I'm
Betting you pretty much everything but the last one would have been pretty similar for Bones.
Yeah, that's why I stayed away from that question back up. But you've written about so many great characters in this sport. I have my personal favorite, which I mentioned in some of the books, that you used to always be nice to send me when we were doing regular interviews. What are your 4 favorites? They might not jive with what other folks will think, because if they love a driver, that's their favorite book.
That I've already done, you mean?
That you've already done. What are your 4 favorite books that if folks had never read anything by you before, which I would find very impossible in this crowd, what would be the 4 books you would personally recommend?
Parnelli Jones, working with him on his autobiography was fantastic, just because you get to hang with Parnelli. You know, I remember getting a call on my phone when I was at Parnelli's, and somebody thought I was here in Indy where I live, and they said, "You want to go to dinner tonight?" And I said, "No, I'm at Parnelli's house." You know, you don't get to say that very often. It had to sink in while I was saying it. Boy, there's been a bunch of them. Some short track guys. Richie Evans was a great racer and a fantastic guy and a fun character to write about. Boy, I look at them all, they're like your kids. You know, I think I'm on my 20th now, and I've loved them all, really.
I told you it was unfair. Yeah. Hey,
you were right.
Parnelli, I'm glad he made that list, because I love that book, but I also got a chance to ask him a question where he gave one of the best answers that I've ever received. I was at an event, I think it was a vintage race event, he was there, and I got to ask him, I said, you know, when I was growing up and learning how to drive, my dad told me, "Stop driving like Parnelli Jones." I said, "Parnelli, who did your dad tell you not to drive like?" And I'm expecting to get some answer of old school racer, and Parnelli looks at me, he says, "My dad told me if I drove more like A.J. Foyt, I would have won a lot more money." All right, Joshua, this is pretty magic of what you've done with Hunt the Front. But I don't think that, now, while some might have a hard time making the success out of it that you guys have, I think there are so many stories to tell on the local short track level, on the road course racing level, even the club track level, in a similar way, a behind the scenes type of way, because that's what I get from what you guys do, and I think that's what captivates the fans. What advice do you have for my group here on how they might be able to get started in telling their own story similar to how you guys have?
Well, I think first of all, if it helps to have a little bit of a background in video and you know, at video editing, and have a you don't have to be an expert or have really expensive equipment with what we do, and you know, I guess it's called vlog, V-L-O-G. Anyway, so it's very simple, and we use a GoPro and just turn it on and talk to it like someone's standing there beside you, and you're explaining what you're doing, whether it's in the shop or at the racetrack. And I've honestly, since we started, I think we started it at a good time, is 2018, whenever it was. YouTube was still growing, I feel, and it's still growing, but it's awfully crowded. I think one of the earlier panelists mentioned how crowded it is on YouTube and everything. And we're seeing that there's more and more short track vloggers out there, all the time starting channels, and definitely there's opportunity there. But I would still recommend doing it. But there's also other opportunity. You don't have to do like our videos, are anywhere from around 18 to 30 minutes, and they probably in total, besides the time shooting them and doing whatever we're doing to shooting them, you're probably looking anywhere from 8 to 12 hours of editing time that my brother Jonathan does with all that he puts a lot of effort into. You don't have to do that. Fortunately, you have videos taking over on Facebook with Reels and Instagram and TikTok. There's other platforms where you can make it a lot simpler, I think, if it's just trying to grow and engage an audience and engage your audience to bring them to your track or your events, whatever it is. You just get a camera or your phone and turn on the camera and talk to it and try to tell a story about what you're doing, I think, and hopefully people find it interesting, and you can then grow an audience, grow a community, and use that to promote whatever event or track or series, whatever it is you're doing.
Do you go by Josh or Joshua?
I prefer Joshua, but
Joshua.
yeah,
Okay. I saw it on the paper, but I wasn't sure.
All three of my brothers have J names, and my dad has J names.
I was picking up on that. My family's the same way. Jake
I'm
and
used to
Jordan
anything
and
with a
Jake.
J. I answer to just about.
I gotcha. So Joshua, I loved what you said about keeping it simple. And when I think about tracks, and even like YouTube, and TikTok does this too, where literally you have a camera, no frills, and you let it just run live. I know a lot of people that are really curious, even if to see what happens. Let me keep bumping myself. To see what happens when the lights go out, so to speak. Like when people are pulling away, when people are after they leave. I could see that being a huge thing. I mean, I know a lot of my family members would probably sit there and watch a live after a NASCAR race. I know my dad would do that in a heartbeat, and I could see him walking in because he's watching you. My dad's 69 years old and he watches YouTube regularly, right? So we get this demographic kind of misconception in our head. Do you know what your demographics are of who's watching you?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I'll say that the 25 to 35 is pretty good, but our biggest is 35 to 45, and 45 to 55 are even bigger. So those two are our two biggest, and then 24 to 35.
Have you been able to measure how well that has attracted people from outside your area to want to come and check you out or to race with you? We've
not done any like specific studies, but all the time we're getting people come up to us at the races and say, if we're at a race in Georgia, they've driven from Virginia down there because it's as close as we were getting or something to come watch us. And we definitely, we have a shop in our hometown and have people. We don't have a storefront of any kind, but we still have people randomly show up to see us there. And then they come to just about every race. There's people that afterward or during an autograph session or whatever who've told us they've driven from wherever. I would say the coolest thing, and at least I hope it is doing, is it's bringing more people to the races just in general, and maybe we're reaching people who are, I think someone said car curious earlier or something, that word, but that that are into motorsports or cars in some form, and maybe they stumble across our videos and it makes them interested in dirt track racing, because they already have that inclination to motorsports, and maybe they'll come to a dirt track race when otherwise they wouldn't have, because that is something that's very important to us, is continuing to grow our sport. We know it's a niche sport with a niche within a niche within a niche, as some people say, but we hope to grow it, and we see our audience and what we've built on YouTube, and continuing to use YouTube as an opportunity to do that and help the entire sport, not just our what we have with our race team and our streaming and series.
Ralph, did you have a follow-up? All right. I got a question for you if you don't.
ahead.
All right. So nowadays, again, was talking about the old days, we had maybe 5 really good publications, National Speed Sport News being the best, Speedway Illustrated was awesome, but we had fewer channels. My TV had 257, 911, and I lived in Chicago. I had a big market to draw from. Nowadays, we have so many competing channels, so many competing ways that people are trying to get there goes the squirrel. We live in a short attention span world now, whether we like it or not. What advice do you have for racetrack promoters, series owners, to reach this new audience? Joshua's done a great job of finding a way, but any advice?
Well, the good news is, because of all of those opportunities that you talked about to view it, there's that many different opportunities to get your product on air somewhere and get seen some way, somehow, that 20 years ago, forget about it, was never going to happen. If you weren't a part of a touring series, you probably weren't getting on any kind of television or of any sort, right? You just weren't going to get eyeballs. Nowadays, there's so many groups out there who are willing to come televise your motorsports event. Doesn't have to be even a race. It could be a motorsports event. And there's probably somebody out there interested in doing it, whether it's streaming one way or another, or a live broadcast of some sort, because there are all these different platforms. And listen, if you're confused, that's okay. We're all confused. I mean, I've been in this business 35 plus years, and I hear about things every day I didn't know about, and I'm confused just trying to figure out what half of these things are. But it's incredible how easy it is to get yourself up on the quote-unquote air and get some eyeballs on what you're doing. If you want to learn more about it, there's plenty of guys out there like Joshua, or what we're doing at Speed Sport, or the guys at Flow, or a million other groups that are out there running around. You can do it yourself, just like Joshua and the guys did. Get yourself up on YouTube. You can do it with your phone. And it's that easy. Take your phone, go shoot something, get yourself on the air, get the ball rolling. Just put something out there to start moving the needle a little bit. And as you gain some momentum, you gain a little experience, a little knowledge, see what kind of results you're getting, then you can maybe explore going a little bit further out and seeing where you can take it. But you shouldn't be afraid of it. Be excited about it, because those opportunities are truly so much better than they've ever been, ever, for people looking to get some exposure for their motorsports event. Take your phone, go shoot a couple of things, put it on Instagram, put it on your Facebook, put it on YouTube, hashtag it, learn some of that. There's all kinds of tutorials out there on how to do that, and get that ball moving. And it'll draw some attention, and certainly one of us is going to probably come running and say, hey, we'll just do a little bit more with you.
And a great way to get those junior college kids involved. There's so many programs that would be perfect for internships out at the track for the summer, and they would love the opportunity to get their name out there.
Oh, yeah, and if you got a teenager in the family somewhere down the family tree, you're halfway home.
All right, Bones. So many great stories you've told us already. What's next?
I got 2 books in the pipeline right now. One is Ed Pink, the legendary engine builder, which has been that's been a hoot to do. It's at the printer now, really. And Mark Martin is the one I'm working on now. I've been working with Mark for a long time on this next one, and Mark is a fascinating little guy. Always has been. Beats himself up. He's his own worst enemy. Great race driver, but so willing to look inside himself that for somebody that does what I do, that's like a Christmas present.
My email address includes a 660 on it for a real good reason. Mark's famous.
You're looking for a free book, right?
No. And I followed his career from the ASA on up to NASCAR. I didn't discover him in NASCAR. I discovered him on the short tracks where heroes are supposed to be.
And that will be a while yet. That's probably another maybe year or so before we see that one, but it's been fun to do. Still fun.
All right, gang. The bar is almost open, so we've got just enough time to wrap things up. Joshua, I'm going to start with you. Final word. And remember to tell people where to find your content.
Well, just look up Hunt the Front on YouTube. You can find us there. If you have any questions or anything, you can email me at joshua@huntthefront.net. But I would just say, we didn't really dive into this, but in our industry, there's a big debate over streaming and how it affects the local tracks and their events, and there's some pushback there, and some of it's warranted. But I think overall it's a trend that isn't going anywhere. It isn't going away. And if you're pushing as an facility, if you're not embracing it, you're backing up. And I really think that's the truth. It's a evolving industry that we're in, and you really need to embrace it. And if you're interested, I know the guys at Speed Sport, they do a great job of helping local tracks and series, and and all the way up to the bigger series. So definitely with them, or partnering with a streaming platform like Flow Racing. So definitely suggest embracing streaming, though, because I mean, for us, we've been able to build a series that is not just benefiting us, but I feel like we're bringing to the tracks that we go to, we're helping them put on successful events. And the most important thing to us was to provide better racing for the racers in the Southeast region where we're from, on the dirt side of things, and then also for the fans. So it's been, I think, a success. Hopefully it continues to be, and I would suggest if that's something you feel like you need to, as your events and everything, definitely look into it and embrace it.
Success is an understatement, young man. You have captivated a really cool part of the racing world. All right, Bones, great authors, great writers need to have a great platform to get their word out, and you have a great company that you work with that really believes in the history of motorsports. Please give them a plug and a final word.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
All of them.
Well, I write for Ralph in Speed Sport.
Yes, you do.
Do a lot of books for a company called Coastal 181. Their website is coastal181.com, and they are probably the biggest online seller of books, racing books anyway, in America. They're great people to work with. I've known them for 40 years now. But I've written for a lot of great people over the years, and they've all been great to me, and it's something I want to see continue. I do want to echo something that Ralph said, and sort of echoes what Joshua just said, is to not be afraid of what's coming, because I do think that when I was writing for trade papers years ago, all the promoters were really on edge about the flack that they would take. I mean, trade papers in the old days used to be really feisty, and promoters would get beaten up now and then in print, and some of them would be really upset about that. And now those are the same promoters that wish the trade papers were around now. So with YouTube, I think you're going to go through a phase where, as promoters and track operators, the coverage you get and the flack you get might be a little bit on the amateur side, but that's okay. It still brings eyeballs, and it helps everybody. I mean, it's that old thing about no publicity is bad publicity. I don't necessarily agree with that all the way, but probably 90% of that is true. So don't be scared of what's coming.
And you did tick both of those boxes that were very important for me, so you took the bait.
Okay, thanks.
Ralph, finish us off.
Well, I think probably the newest thing that's out there for you to hear about is called FAST, Free Ad-Supported Television. Anybody in here heard about that? I'm sure a few of you have. So that's where we're taking Speed Sport with our Speed Sport 1 platform. You'll be hearing a lot more about that in the coming days as we're getting ready to announce new distribution platforms that are coming. So with free ad-supported television, free is the key word. There is no subscription fee. It is absolutely free to the viewer to watch. So it's going to be a big revolution that way. No subscription fees, no pay-per-view. It is entirely free, and it's up to us to make the money. We've got that figured out. We know how to do that. It's a great format, and I think it's really going to be exciting for the race fans, which means tremendous amount of eyeballs coming to watch your programs, your events, and it's going to be very exciting. We've already done this year over 400 hours of live motorsports for free on Speed Sport 1. Then on speedsport.tv, we did some 2,500 hours of live streaming of motorsports events. So it's out there. It's possible to get yourself out there, talk to one of the companies handling it, get yourself familiar with it, find out what's going on, find out which platform works best for you. It might be streaming. You might want that revenue stream. It might be fast. You never know, but just go out and talk to them.
We have had some great media panels throughout the years here at RTBC. I got to meet a lot of my hero reporters and get to know them through this panel every year. One person who's no longer with us that was a regular at RTBC and even showed up on this panel the day he got a cancer treatment, got chemo, and still came to do the panel. The late, great Robin Miller would be proud of you gentlemen. And as I said, when we lost Robin, every year that they allow me back to do a media panel, it's in his honor. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, you guys